Shifting the discussion to Climate Asia now. Climate Asia is a platform where you connect people with opportunities. Basically, it's a platform for everyone to find ways to contribute to the climate. Uh, and what your role here is that you are leading an accelerator program or accelerator programs to be precise. So, can you just explain in brief for our viewers what's an accelerator program and how does it work?
Yeah, sure. Um, like the name suggests, accelerator is about accelerating something.
Hmm.
And unlike the accelerators in science lab, this is a very different accelerator. So we are not a science lab or a research lab. What we are trying to do is, like we discussed just now, how the transition from, let's say, chemical farming to natural farming has to happen. Now, we also spoke about the element of speeding this up, right? Like the acceleration of this
Hmm.
transition. So
Hmm.
I think the accelerator that we run is actually about that. Uh, so there is a lot of work that is being done on the ground by civil society institutions, and they are doing it with whatever resources and capacity they have in their disposal at their disposal. Now, what we have also found is that a lot of these grassroots institutions, like NGOs and FPOs, require a lot of support to accelerate their work so that they can do more good more faster, particularly in the climate sense. For example, we are a country of billion and more people, where majority of them are vulnerable to climate change.
True.
And in the climate change picture, as much as we try to mitigate our emissions as a country, we also have to think about adapting a lot of this population to climate change. So the adaptation becomes important. And because civil societies and FPOs work with the grassroots communities, so they have very unique position to sort of do this acceleration to adaptation, and that's where our focus is as Climate Asia. So what we do is we do programs where we select a set of institutions from a particular region through
Hmm.
call for applications,
Hmm.
and these institutions will work with us for a period of 1 year to 1.5 years to understand fundamentally what climate change is doing to their communities, and how to assess the risks of climate change, how to assess the vulnerability, and then how to frame responses to climate change in a way that makes it a long term adaptation for them, like a transformational adaptation. So I think that's the larger aim of the program. So I lead the accelerator program that currently focuses on institutions which are working on agriculture, focusing on smallholder farmers,
Hmm.
because majority of our agriculture is also comprising of smallholder farmers. Uh, so we need to think about their livelihoods. We also have to think about the food security that comes from them. So it's kind of what you call, it's a problem that has multiple dimensions. So I think we are trying to solve the problem by capacitating some of the institutions that we think are potentially have high impact in this transition. I think that's what we are trying to do.
All right. So, in one of your blogs, you mentioned that these NGOs and FPOs they lack organizational capacity. So, by that, you were saying that to create the impact at scale, the skills that are needed, the knowledge that are needed, that is what you are imparting through the accelerator program.
Yeah, so the skills and knowledge and the expertise required for them to do the whole adaptation
Hmm.
programs is what we impart, and that's the capacity that I was talking about,
Okay. Okay.
which is lacking today.
Okay. Uh, in the blog, you also mentioned, and in fact, now in your conversation, you also said that the villages, the small towns, hamlets, they are exposed to multiple risks of climate change. Now, uh, I always feel that the impact of climate change problems is skewed. Someone faces it much more than us.
Yes.
So, since you are working with rural communities, can you bring to fore what were these multiple risks that you talk about that they are facing?
Yeah, so like you just rightly mentioned, Vedant, so the effect of climate change is disproportionate on, I mean, if we consider the larger population of the world, I think it's disproportionately affecting the emerging countries and low income countries,
Hmm.
because the emissions have always been from the highly industrialized countries and the West mostly. Similarly, if you zoom in into country like India, again, it is disproportionately affecting the rural areas more than the urban areas, because the adaptive capacity is quite low for rural areas. And emissions also, they haven't really emitted so much as much as the urban or industrial spaces have done. And if you zoom in further into rural areas, you would see that it is again disproportionately affecting a particular community of people. For example, it's disproportionately affecting farmers than anyone else, because it is about their livelihood, it is about their ability to secure food for all of us and all of that. If you zoom in into the farming community, it is again disproportionately affecting women and children, because women have to spend a lot of number of hours working on the farm. They have to take care of the households. In many places, we have seen men migrating for work to urban areas, and then all the chores and everything is left with the women, and they have to work like, you know 18 hours a day to sort of secure their life. And again, if you zoom in into the women, like, you would see that certain communities coming from a certain region or a certain community caste, they face a lot of problem because they are already at disadvantage. So I think the disproportionateness of climate change's effect is seen at very different levels, right from the world stage to a local level. And I think recognizing this is important, acknowledging this is important, and who's most vulnerable and stuff like that, and accordingly framing the problem and trying to frame a response to this problem is important, I think. That's why I think understanding this disproportionateness of climate effect. um, I'm sorry, I think I lost your question.
No, you did explain it very correctly. But then, at this very zoomed in level, do you think these people even have an idea as to why exactly certain things are happening? For example, let's take the farmer level where you said that farmers are being disproportionately affected.
Yeah.
Do they know what reasons are happening, because of what different causes somewhere else in the world, because of which their lives are being affected?
Yeah, I think I'd like to believe that a lot of farmers know about it in their own context. Like, they may not really know that, oh, okay, so the planet is going through global warming and
Mm-hmm.
this emissions, and our carbon in the atmosphere has reached a particular ppm levels, and
Mm-hmm.
they may not know all of this. But they do certainly know that our monsoons are shifting. We have very unpredictable rainfall, and we have very unpredictable yields from our crops. And they certainly know that, okay, the heat waves are increasing and the temperatures are increasing and all of that. And because of that, so we are facing a lot of problem in the agriculture. So they know, at that level they understand the context. And now, why is this happening? Why are the monsoons shifting? Why are the heat waves increasing? Why are the uh, rainfalls becoming unpredictable? And I think, to comprehend that, I don't think many farmers or many grassroots communities understand it. Some
Mm-hmm.
of them understand it in their own cultural context. Some of them know that, okay, someone is polluting, someone is exploiting the resources. That's why we are facing this. For example, when I visited some of the NGOs working with Adivasi communities, culturally they understand that we live in harmony with nature. We know how to live with nature and in
Mm-hmm.
harmony without harming anything. But there is this external industry that has come and dug our hills and forests and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why our forest gods and our nature is now showing its impact. So the culturally they understand it and make sense of it in a very different way, which perfectly aligns with how climate change works, right? Like, we don't have to uh, weave a different story. That's what is happening. Like, you are kind of exploiting the nature, and nature is giving it back.
Okay.
So I think this is the kind of understanding that I see that is happening. But I think there's more to uh, uh, do in terms of helping these communities understand it, because it's also a matter of justice. Like, these communities deserve to know, it is their right to know
Hmm.
that the problems they are facing is not just because of their own actions, it's also because of the actions of someone else
Hmm.
who are sharing this planet with them. So I
Hmm.
think that dialogue, that understanding hasn't really seeped in. So I
Yeah.
think that's where we need to really also focus and help these communities to understand it. Because if they understand it, they might actually feel more responsible and they might actually fight for their rights.
Hmm.
Otherwise, the emitter is emitting, and the one that is getting affected
Yeah.
is getting affected more in two corners of the world.
Okay.
Um,
But
yeah.
I want to combine what we discussed before this, like the fertilizer problem we discussed, where they are opting for chemical fertilizers. One of the primary reasons I think would be a costs versus, so the livelihood problem will always trump some other problem, because if you don't have
Mm.
your basic needs of food
Yeah.
and other things, you will stop thinking about certain other problems. Um, won't this dilemma always be there even in their heads, that let's take example of stubble burning somewhere in the northern region, like many might even have an idea that stubble burning is causing pollution, but at the same time, if they want to maintain their livelihoods, that is the cheapest method that they can use. So in such cases, how do the CSOs or folks like you solve for this?
No, I think all of these solutions also need to come from the local stakeholders, like the CSOs and the
Hmm.
farmers have to also think about it. And like it also has, like, for example, the stubble burning that we talk about has come to limelight only when the Delhi, the capital city, got choked.
Hmm.
Uh, and when they get choked in a certain season of the year, they suddenly start blaming the stubble burning and
Yeah,
farmers
yeah.
and everything.
Hmm.
But if you also go and hear the farmers, they would say that we've been doing this for many, many years. You never complained about it like 10 years back, 15 years back. Suddenly now, so because of your own mess that you created in the city, and this is adding to your mess, you are now blaming us. So that's the narrative on one side. And there's
Hmm.
this narrative on the other side that it's easy to blame that, okay, Punjab mein someone is burning it, so Delhi is choked because of that. So I think I see two narratives, two polarities. There are some people who are trying solutions. Like I know an entrepreneur who's trying to solve this through technology, like
Yeah.
providing the biochar based technology.
Hmm.
Now that entrepreneur would need an ecosystem of support
Hmm.
to help if that technology solves the problem.
Hmm. Right.
And there is a regulatory space or a public policy space where people have to frame regulations and policies to ensure that farmers don't burn stubble, but at the same time also not lose out on the opportunity of gaining livelihoods, because they have to prepare for next season, right? They can't be waiting around to make biochar when there is no system of doing that so quickly.
Hmm.
So I think there are many, many pieces here. So it's very hard for one stakeholder to solutionize for this. But I think a lot of these things have to come together at a local level, and people have to listen to both the views on each side and try to solve this, is my opinion. Because it also becomes sudden political headline
Yeah.
during the time. And it just flares up emotions on both the sides. So I think that's what is happening every year. Like every time this happens, the pollution in Delhi, I hear from friends that, oh, Delhi, we should leave Delhi, and few of them even go to the mountains and come back after Diwali. So it's like a recurring thing.
And
But I honestly don't know how to offer a solution. I'm not in that position right now, but I listen to all these sides and understand that, okay, it's a complex problem. Yeah.
in this whole flare up of political issues and all, the actual problem always is shifted to the side,
Yes.
and that's the
Yes.
sad part of it. And since again coming to the zooming in part of communities, is the government redressal again lacking, because uh, the ones who should be responsible, which are the ICAR scientists or agricultural experts, have not yet given them a solution, and that's why redressal mechanisms from government are also limited, restricted.
Um, I don't know if I have to say yes or no for that question, because I don't know the amount of efforts being put from the government side, to be honest.
Hmm.
Sometimes it seems like there's a lot of effort going from the government, from even the systems like ICAR other research. I don't totally blame them for what they are doing, but at the same time, there's also sometimes lack of effort that comes up in some of the instances.
Hmm.
In some places, it's being done very well. In some cases, for example, when the government has taken up some of these policies and regulations very seriously and has made them flagship programs, so it
Hmm.
has worked very well. Um, and I mean, they have included the research system, they have included the farmers, they've included civil society into it. Like, for example, Odisha's millet mission is a great example. So Odisha has created a mission for various reasons. They said millets are climate resilient, millets give a lot of nutrition, millets are easy to grow, millets are the food of Adivasis and it has to be promoted. They created a mechanism to create value chain for millets so that consumption increases. They brought in scientists who validate that. They brought in the agricultural machinery to do that. So that's one example I see which is picking up nicely in state of Odisha. Same in Andhra, the case study of natural farming, which was taken up by the government. Uh, is supposedly one of the big experiments in agroecology to save the soil, at the same time save the crops and not use chemicals. There also, I see the government has stepped in and said that okay, the agricultural machinery should focus on this. So there's a department institution created for it. So some of the places it's happening, and we all know about the example of Sikkim state, right? Like they
Hmm.
declared it as organic state, and they don't allow any of these chemical fertilizers, supposedly. So I think yeah, I think there are some examples, but there's a lot more to do in a country like ours, which is huge.
Okay. Speaking of the positive side of these problems, you mentioned in your blog that there were phenomenal examples of community resilience also. So, can you share any such example on the ground which you saw?
I think community examples that I have seen are from the NGO partners that we worked with
Hmm.
in Jharkhand, Odisha, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar. And I think community resilience is important to think about because I saw that a lot of local institutions like these NGOs have been super resilient over the last many, many years of their working. So, like I said, the beauty of civil society institution is that they work with that community for last 40 years and they will work for the next 40 years also. So they are there sitting in that block and working with that community on various issues. And that's very hard to imagine for the new generation of entrepreneurs and nonprofits. Like I see many of my friends who start their nonprofits, but they specialize in one thing and they want to scale.
Hmm.
So I want to do this pilot and I want to scale this to 600 districts of India. Like our vision for development and our understanding of development has totally changed. So we want to create products and services and want to scale. So everything has to be scaled. But these institutions for the last 40 years have sat in one place and they scaled deeper. They said ki we will solve the problem and uh, I mean apart from like I'm not discussing about how many of them are successful and not successful.
Hmm.
Many of them were successful, many of them are still struggling, many of them failed. But the what is required is that sitting with the community and working towards it, right? So I think that's the one example of resilience of these organizations. The funding landscape has changed, the resources keep changing, the resources at their disposal keeps changing, but they have kept their resilience of working with the community for a long time. Second, going a little more deeper, zooming in, the community itself is resilient.
Hmm.
Um, um, I have seen in Odisha some of the NGOs working with Adivasi communities
Hmm.
and farming communities. And there is one NGO that I visited. They have created more than 200 One Suraksha Samitis. So
Okay.
One Suraksha Samiti is a group of people in a village who will take the responsibility of protecting the forest around their village.
Hmm.
And they form a One Suraksha Samiti, VSS.
Okay.
This NGO has created 200 plus One Suraksha Samitis, which means all these 200 groups are owned by the people for protecting the forest. So we are not even talking about forest department, government, or anything. So this is the community which is protecting. And I visited one such One Suraksha Samiti where they have proudly showcased like group of some 10, 15 women and two men. They took us to this small hillock, and
Hmm.
they said, imagine this hillock was totally bald 10 years
Hmm.
back. And they said we used to call it a bald hill in Odia,
Hmm.
but now it is full of trees and there's biodiversity, there's like a lot of animals, there's a lot of water, all of that. They were super proud of it, and they said that we want to protect this hill forever, this is our job. And they also said the explained the uses of it. So when they protected the hill and regenerated the forest, the water resources, the groundwater resources have increased, and it helped them to sort of irrigate more land in their area. When the biodiversity increased, the pollination increased. So
Hmm.
there's more fruition of your crop. And when this whole thing increased, the temperature, the microclimate has come down. So it's not super hot. So you can just go and sit under a tree and, like, herd your sheep or herd your animals. And they worship this hill now as their local gram devata or god.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I think this is a beautiful way of how community has now taken up the resilience in their own hands, right? Like, no government, nothing. And even if this NGO has backed out of this whole initiative, the community is taking it forward. So I think I've seen such examples of beautiful community resilience. And unless we go to that level of action for climate, locally led is what we call, right? Like locally led adaptation.
Hmm.
If we don't do that, then I don't think we can win the kind of war against climate change, so to speak. Yeah.
Interesting, simple yet impactful things.
Yeah.
All right. On that note, I would like to shift to now what I call the climate rapid fire. I'm going to ask you 8 to 10 questions, simple questions. You only have to answer in one word or one line, and whichever springs first to your mind, that would be the answer we end up with.
All right.
So, are you ready for the rapid fire?
Yeah.
Okay,
I've never done this before.
don't worry. It's not very different. It's a climate rapid fire, so I've changed it a little bit, except what you see on TVs on different programs. All right, beginning with the first
Okay.
question. A book, article, a video, or a publication related to climate change that you will recommend to someone.
I would recommend the book called A Climate, a New Story
Okay,
by Charles Eisenstein.
and the book is about.
So the book is about how he makes case for how climate is seen today
Hmm.
as it evolves, and how it is also seen in a very narrow light. So we define climate change in carbon terms. We define climate change in sometimes in finance terms, or
Hmm.
we define it in economic terms. But he says that climate needs to be looked in a very holistic way. It's not about just the things that we can measure and describe it. There are things immeasurable that we lose because of it. So he makes case for all of that. It's a beautiful book to read. Yeah.
Okay, your favorite influencer or someone you look up to as an idol in the domain of sustainability.
I think someone that inspired me, not necessarily to be in climate or sustainability, but is P. Sainath. Uh, uh, and he's been a journalist, and he's been like he's founder of Pari, the People's Archives of Rural India.
Hmm.
And there are many other people like Vandana Shiva inspires me a lot. And there are many people who are not alive today, like Anil Agarwal and the environmentalists Sundarlal Bahuguna, and
Yeah.
these are some of the people. Yeah.
Okay. A brand or a company who you think is doing great, impactful work towards the planet.
Patagonia.
Okay. A brand company who you think can do much more impactful work for the planet.
A lot of them can do.
Anyone.
uh, can do much more impactful, which means they are already doing impactful work, but they can do much more.
Yeah.
I don't know, for some reason, Coca Cola came to my mind.
All right. There is a hoarding. that is going to garner a million legitimate impressions, as in people, a million people are going to read what is being written on it. Now you have the opportunity to write one message on it with two conditions: it should be related to climate, and it should be a one liner or at max a two liner message.
Slow down to save the planet and
All
save
right.
yourself.
All right, great. If given an opportunity to go back in time, what is that one mistake in your life you would like to correct?
I think I would go back to my days when I was pursuing my master's,
Hmm?
and I would probably focus more on building my research skills, research and action research skills. Yeah.
Okay. If not this, the accelerator programs, the community outreach, and the on ground action that you're doing right now, what other problem would you have loved to work upon?
Helping more young people to live slow and build their own farms and build their own small little communities.
Hmm.
I think I would still love to do that. I don't have time.
Okay. Uh, you have one superpower, which is to listen to any one of the natural bodies, like an ocean, mountain, forest, desert, like that. Whose problem would you want to listen to, and why?
Forests.
And why is that?
I think I studied that forests are super interconnected through the mycelium networks and stuff
Hmm.
like that.
Hmm.
I feel like they are the lungs and eyes and ears of the planet. So I would love to hear from them what they think of
All
what
right.
is happening.
Okay, great. You have another superpower to interview one organism other than humans. Right, so organism like that. So, who would you interview, and what do you think will be the topic of discussion?
I think I would interview earthworms,
Okay.
and I'll probably interview them, ask them why they do what they do, why are they continuously just eating and living, but also making the soil healthy, and like what's the philosophy.
Uh, Brilliant. And finally, what short, quick message will you give out to inspire someone to work on something with a larger purpose similar to what you are doing?
I don't know about the suggestion, but I think something that I'm also trying to do is I also always felt that if we do something at a mega scale and large scale and big things, then we will solve the issue. But I'm starting to realize that just pick one region, just pick one place, and start solving the problem. Focus on one thing and keep solving it. Work with the people around in that space. I'm starting to believe that that's going to help. Like if all of us just pick like one place that we live in and start working there, I think that itself is going to solve. Like I would encourage anyone in the climate space to do that. But yeah, if someone has a skill to negotiate at the table in COPs, then they should do that also. But yeah, local led.
All right. Kaushik, this has been a wonderful and insightful discussion. I enjoyed it a lot. I thank you a lot for giving your time. This was totally worth it. This 1 hour was power packed. And thank you so much. I would love to talk with you again.
Thank you, Vedant. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Hey, thanks for listening to the episode. Please let me know your feedback and do share it with someone who might like it and is hopefully inspired by it. Positive Planet is dedicated to amplifying ideas and solutions that create a better world. So, if you know of any such idea that I should cover, please let me know in the comments or ping me on Instagram. The links are in the description. Most importantly, if we want to make this planet a positive one, we must stay together. So please be a part of the Positive Planet community and subscribe to this podcast. Thanks. See you soon.